Hi, welcome to the 6502 show. Today, I've got a collection of a bunch of little things. We're going to talk about VTL. I've got some corrections and additions to put in there. And we're going to talk about some really cool resources and, of course, some neat games. Let's take a quick look at how VTL-2C handles conditional statements. Like so. Let's make A equals 4 and B equals 7. And then I want to print out, let's say, A less than B. We get a 1 because it's true. Print equals A equals B. And I get a 0. And we can almost certainly expect the exact same thing when we do this. A greater than B. Yeah, also 0. It's not true. And this is very important for VTL because all of the conditional branching is based on an expression being evaluated into a 1 or a 0. It is true or it is not true, and that's what allows branching to happen with the hashtag symbol, the pound sign. Let's see. That's what you would expect. However, when we do these things in KIM Basic 9, Microsoft Basic version 1.1, things are a little different. Let's take a quick look here. So A equals 4, B equals 7, and print me out A less than B. -1. Isn't that fascinating? If I print this, I get a 0. Not true. Same as in VTL2. And of course, which we also know is not true. But that -1 is interesting, and it got me to thinking, is this a flaw? Is this a problem? Or is this kind of what they do? Well, I took a look at the VIC-20, and well, sure enough, the exact same result. So this hadn't changed by, 1980. Then I thought, well, okay, let's go look at something a little later. I've got a copy of GW Basic, and inside of DOSBox, running it, and the same exact behavior. So nothing changed there at all. It's just the way it is. It's kind of a quirk. Interesting, but a quirk. You can't even do this kind of a thing in Tiny Basic, nor can you do it in FOCAL. FOCAL just sets things up. Yep, A equals B, all right. Now it's 7-2. All right, good job. But all is not lost, friends. We still have one more high-level language that we can use on our 6502 little single-board computer, and that is Apple I Basic. Yep, this little program right here ought to get the job done and show us what it'll do. Well, look at that. It's right. It's true or it isn't true. It's +1 or it's nothing. I mean, with the Microsoft, you can certainly test for a negative state. That's fine. But this gives you that 1 and the 0 that you kind of, intuitively expect. Thanks, Woz. I'd like to return to VTL2 for just a minute. The other day, I got an email from Mike Berry, who had ported VTL-2C from the 6800. I think he worked off of the original Altair 680B version, and he ported it to 6502. Well, now it's been about 8-9 years, I guess. Well, he'd watched one of the videos and sent me a note that said, hey, VTL-2C's got peek and poke in it. Why'd you say it didn't? And I realized it does. Well, I guess I didn't realize it does. So he pointed out to me that it's in the documentation in the source code. So I went back and looked, and sure enough, it's like, well, yeah, it is there. And I told him about, oh my God, that's probably how I missed it. It's just mentioned very briefly and not explicitly peek or poke. So I guess I just overlooked that. He went back and said, yeah, that kind of makes sense. I think I'm going to touch up the comments in the source code so that it's a little more explicit. Well, I thought, great, let's put this through the paces here on a video so that we can see exactly how it works. There are two different variables that we want to add into the mix here, and it is less than, which is a pointer. It's pointing to something. And then we'll make that, let's say, address 300 decimal, which will be hex 12C. So we'll point to that, and let's poke something into it. When the @ sign is on the left of an equal sign, that will be our poke. So we're going to go @ equals, and let's put in 66. It just says OK. And if we want to read that value back in, we can say simply, because our pointer is still pointing to 300 decimal, we can go P equals, or any variable would be fine, P equals @ OK, and let's print P. 66. And to show that it's not in the variable space, I'm going to break out of VTL-2C right now, and I'm going to pop over to 12 Charlie. 42 hex is 66 decimal. So yes, it is depositing and reading from memory directly. Pretty cool. And I think I'm going to have to revisit a few of my games and make them a little more efficient and use the peek and poke that is inherent and built right in to VTL-2C for the 6502. Thanks, Mike. Again, I think part of my problem was not paying attention, partly, but also it had to do with this. This is the manual that Frank and Gary put together in 1977, but spiffed up here about 20 years ago with much better formatting and much better fonts, way much more readable than this. Yeah, dot matrix printing and big block letters and not as pretty. But I thought, well, did something get left out when they refurbished the manual and updated it and made it nice? Well, no. In fact, this has more stuff in it. And more important to me, it had this. Mini Trek by Frank McCoy, January 1977. This was not in the redesigned and relaid out manual for whatever reason, but I got it now, and I want to play it. Okay, we're loaded up with Mini Trek, and we're ready to roll. There is the Enterprise in Sector 5-1. It is Stardate 65479. I've got 10,000 units of energy. There are 36 Klingons, but they're not in this sector. So, or this quadrant, rather. It's set up in quadrants, 8 by 8. Which is kind of traditional. We need to go somewhere else. So that's command number 2. There's a star base. And no Klingons yet. How interesting. Well, we may as well take advantage of this base. So I'm going to move myself to sector, what would be what? I'm going to go to 5, no, I'm going to go to 1, 2, 3, I want to go to 4-1. 4-1. That puts me right next to the base. Condition is docked, energy replenished. Let's go Klingon hunting. There's one. Oh, we took a hit. I'm going to fire a torpedo at him to sector, what will be, 1-3, I think. Got him. There's a 1 in 4 chance that I might miss, and the more Klingons there are, the more hits and damage I take. Also very interesting, this all fits in under 2K. You had to expand your 680B from its 1 up to 2, but this made a very playable little Star Trek game, I think. All right, just one more Klingon. Got to do it. Let's see, he is in 5. 5-5. Got him. Let's dock, and then I'll shut her down. Move within the quadrant up to sector 1-3. Oops, I miscalculated. We'll move to 1-1. There we go. You can tell the grid is, it's XY, row column, obviously, but it starts in the upper left-hand corner and works its way down to the lower right. Cool. And there is a self-destruct sequence. If I fire on myself, Enterprise is gone. I'm still docked, apparently, but I lose.
Finding Minitrek was a lot of fun, and I thought, you know what else would be fun? Let's see if we can get this to run in FOCAL. So I set to work translating the random statements and all of the conditional branching to fit the syntax. Well, let's see how I did.
I have FOCAL loaded up because I just couldn't let well enough alone. Minitrek was a lot of fun, and I wanted to see if I could do it in FOCAL-65. Well, you can see there are some differences in the code, stark differences. The way conditional branching is handled is completely different. FOCAL's got a -1, 0, +1 state in any if statement, anytime it's testing a condition. It really only wants to know, is it greater than 0, less than 0, or 0? And that made for some interesting coding. But here we are, we got it done, and we're gonna play. I made a few little tweaks from the last one. It runs a little bit slower under FOCAL, as you can see, but the output is identical and the gameplay is identical. It is stardate 5732, so we've got 34 stardates to get 20 Klingons. Holy crap! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Klingons in this quadrant. We got some work to do. Scotty, load up the torpedo tubes. I'm at 5-1. Well, let's go to then 6-1. Let's take out the one at 2-3. Got him. Again, there's that 1 in 4 chance. Meanwhile, the stardates are ticking away, and we may or may not have time to do all of this if we get caught in a big one. And luckily, there's a starbase here, and we can make some hay with that. All right, well, you get the idea. There are a lot more interesting programs that were written in FOCAL back in the day, as far back as 1968. And I've been rating the DECUS library, that is the DEC Users Society, and they used to provide printouts and paper tapes to their members. We've got, perhaps first up, the granddaddy of all games, King of Samaria, which is also known as Hammurabi. This is probably the second game ever written in FOCAL. Other favorites like Fran the Bartender, Lunar Lander, can't go wrong with that, and Carnival Dice. Dice Game was probably the very first game ever written. Doesn't work very well in FOCAL-65. Neither does Artillery or the Stock Market game. I've also translated some games from BASIC. Wipeout, and Depth Charge, Gunner, and finally, even a Magic 8-Ball game. It's all on my website, link in the description below.
I got a letter from Norbert Landsteiner, and he runs Mass-Werk out in Central Europe, and it is a tremendous resource for 6502 aficionados and especially Commodore folks. The assembler, disassembler, all the tools, the emulators, just great stuff. Well, he made a few changes to the disassembler, so let's take a look at those.
Okay, here on the left, you can see the disassembler from MassWerk as it used to be. And the difference is subtle. Now, you may recall that we had to go, when we made Huey, we had to go and use a spreadsheet to plop the code that the assembler gave us. Then we had to strip out the hex addresses because it was really screwing things up. Well, if you look over to the right here, Norbert has added strip addresses. It's a checkbox, and it will look at any 4-digit hex number, and it will wipe it out if you have that checked. You don't have to go through the rigmarole of fooling around with a spreadsheet. So thanks, Norbert, for pointing that out. I also want to mention Norbert's blog. It's way cool. URL is popping up on the screen right now. Check it out.
And finally, we have a fun little horizontal scrolling game written in the spirit of the first book of KIM games. This is simply called Space Game, and it's by Gavin Dandridge. Let's give it a play. Oh, messed up. But it's a lot of fun and fits in just less than about, I think 160 bytes. Check out Gavin's GitHub repository, and you can get this game, and you can see plans for his own 6502 homebrew computer that he made. About as simple as it gets, and absolutely genius.
Thanks for watching the 6502 show. I hope you enjoyed the video. I appreciate it if you would subscribe and like it down below. And I really enjoy making these things for you guys. And it's fun to share ideas and thoughts and learn a little bit along the way. So until we see each other again, take care.